I'm putting this bit before the actual ramble. I've been up for 2.5 days. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and this is really the only way I would ever have gotten this whole debate in the air and make me generally feel better about a lot of things. Now then, on to what will probably get me flayed from every side. I've done about 17 different drafts and lead-ins to this video, and boy, I know I'm going to be hit from both sides from it. Originally, this rant started as a simple, humble talk about how Riri Williams, while a stupid move from Marvel, being yet another mediocrely handled legacy hero to cater to a very vocal minority solely to get the quick sales that'll drop off fast, as they do, but then they'll be moving on to their next big thing so they don't care. Then it became a response video to Autonomous Prime and SUGARTITS collab against Riri Williams by calling out some super SJW agenda within Marvel that really came off more like a whiny fanboy afraid of change than someone who legitimately had fault with the company. See, the reason it came off more SJWs are taking her comics rather than legitimate grievances is because there's really no talk about the final product. While it's easy to turn around and say that Jane Foster's Thor was poorly handled, or Sam Wilson becoming Captain America felt kind of, okay, there's that, let's move on really quick, which is actually kind of a good way to go. Those are examples in a sea of #1 issues that's come out in the past, since Marvel Now. Literally, there's tons. So when Bendis turns around and goes, okay, we're killing off Ultimate Peter Parker, let's make the next one black. Is that an SJW agenda, or is that going, here's an interesting notion for a story? And see, that's why using Miles Morales actually kind of hinders the Marvel's totally SJW right now, because the product's quality and the message they push through that is what is being pushed. That may not make sense to some people, but it's like you can still enjoy Michael Jackson's music even if he was an alleged pedophile, because his music was the bottom line and his music is the consumable material, whereas him as a person wasn't, unless you wanted to eat Michael Jackson. Anyways, it's also why Bill Willingham's conservative views didn't really affect his writing of Obsidian in the Justice Society of America books. Someone's personal views may not be reflected in their creations. Me not liking Marvel's current pattern over the past 3 or 4 years, basically after their well of writing dried up before they had to switch to the bottled water of Disney. They've had some truly superb books since then, but overall it's been a severe dip in quality because they have a money-making scheme where they basically don't need to do a lot with the characters they have. That is utilizing their product to point out their faults. But anyways, when I brought this up to Frogman, he disagreed, saying that it was all about an SJW agenda within Marvel itself. And we got into it fairly hard. Not gonna lie, we even haven't talked since then. Granted, this was only, 3 or 4 days ago. Our primary disagreement was about the reasoning. He felt that it was internalized SJW activity, whereas I felt it was Marvel utilizing the SJW crowd to pander for sales, in the same way they boost their short-term numbers by pandering to the movie crowd or pandering to the nostalgia factor. We both agreed that regardless, it's severely hurting the comic industry as a whole, that Marvel, one of the two leading faces, and DC to some extent, have a very shaky ground when it comes to quality. They're the leading faces. They are the big two, and they should be the flagships to show quality, and not merely what should sell. But that's the problem when the two big names are both relegated to subsidiaries of a larger company. It's also why I think DC does it less than Marvel, because Warner has had them a lot longer and kind of just gone whatevs, but that's my own personal opinion. See, that was where I'd get shoulder checked from the right, because I just kind of said that they don't really show a super SJW agenda within just to get them money. But here's where I'm going to be shoulder checked by the left. I think Andy's right more than I'll admit, not because the company as a whole is using the current cultural climes to make a buck. That's what's going to get Hillary into office. It's how every media outlet makes money right now, fundamentally. No, the reason is, company-wise, there's logic outside of because SJW plot. That's why I can't agree with them on that. But here's what I can agree with them based on a single writer's history within Marvel. One of my favorites, actually, and I've praised her up and down the hill, Marguerite Bennett. She's had a spectacular career writing comics everywhere. I've been praising her since the very first issues way back when. It's elsewhere on my channel, where I even say that her writing in the Joker's Daughter one-shot made it a much more substantial and unique read than Miss Marvel #1, which dropped the same day. I know, heresy. But she has been a fantastic writer for the most part, with a fantastic ongoing with Aftershock right now, and another on the way. But there's something that almost feels weird with her work with Marvel that always took something away from her writing as a whole. Now, A-Force was a good book. Was it great? Not really, but primarily because while you could see shades of how deep Bennett could get, and how well she can handle characters and writing in general, it still had the watered-down feel of Marvel now. And that's actually the mindset that got me thinking. For A-Force, they made sure to advertise the hell out of it as being the high-profile Bennett with the high-profile G. Willow Wilson for a mandated, all-female Avengers book. Like I said, it's not a bad book. There's actually some heart, and you can tell that Bennett and Wilson really do like the characters they're writing. Though I do see a lot more Bennett writing in it than Wilson. That really just got hamstrung by being made for Secret Wars to pander to a specific audience, as Secret Wars was basically just a panderathon. Yeah, a panderathon. Anyways. And it worked not because of the gimmick, but because of the writers. That's where I get to point to the Angela series, where fundamentally the character is just alright, and really has no point in the Marvel Universe other than someone somewhere had a story that they just could not live without. And while there's something there in the writing, it's not much. It's why it went from a first issue sales for the month being at number 15 without any major competition in events or anything like that, compared to even the 2015 list where the trade was number 556 out of 1,000 with only 2,600 sales, and the only charting issue of the official series for 2015 was issue 3 at number 861 out of 1,000 of top singles. But Marvel had to market the hell out of it to get those numbers, tacking on as much as they could think to do for just a simple placeholder solo series that I'm assuming Marvel wanted specifically because they spent money for the character, and after they got their mileage out of whoever's bright storyline idea that whole mess was, there was really nothing to do with the character. Yes, this first iteration, Asgard's Assassin, wasn't really anything but aimlessness. Even Comic Book Resources review of number 3 basically had them pointing to how aimless it is and how pointless it was. But Bennett only worked on flashbacks for it, from what I can see. So no, that little tangent really meant nothing because Angela, Queen of Hell, is the one that Bennett had as lead. But the reason I brought all that up is because the damage was already done. Even the first issue didn't crack 40,000 sales, and it had nothing working against it. I mean, Grayson, who sold a little over 100 issues less than this, was because there was a huge campaign of crybabies not being able to handle Dick out of his onesie. The series went down from there. They gave Bennett a sinking ship, and she really couldn't pull up with what they gave her. There wasn't even a small boost in sales that typically accompanied when a Marvel comic does something SJW-y, such as the whole Boars controversy of issue number 4. And yes, the art to these books were beautiful and the writing wasn't horrible, but none of it could save it. Now what the hell am I actually even rambling about? How does Bennett's Marvel career point one way or the other that there's an SJW agenda or not? Well, there's 2 or 3 mindsets to think of here. Either Bennett really is a good writer, and she keeps getting watered down by Marvels who have a larger agenda rather than wanting to create a great book, which could then lead to the watered down but good A-Force, or the pointlessness that really covered the Angela book. If that's the case, then Andy's right, and the SJW force within Marvel is hurting the business strictly because they wish to try and push a point that they apparently won't see hinders the cause they want to push. Or I could believe that Bennett was handed Queen of Hell because Gillen hopped ship, and in trying to gain the slipping readership back, she went with a really bad gag that turned a lot of people off of wanting to see why Angela's about to fight freaking boars, which would mean that it's an attempt to use the SJW crowd to boost sales. Or she was trying to kill it, because issue 5 after that, doubled the amount of people who left the book. I know, weird. But that would mean that she used the SJW crowd to boost or negate sales, which would mean that it's a standard pandering for money thing. Or we could even go with the third option that because Bennett became a big name after A-Force, or at least I had to explain to about 300 people in a forum who she was, and when she was announced as co-writer for A-Force, gave her a looser leash to let her own personal views leak through, which would again mean that I'm right in that it's someone's personal views and not the views of Marvel or the company at all. So the SJW would technically still be an external thing. Of course, as I said at the beginning of this whole rant, this is primarily a ramble about something that's been weighing on me, because it's not as black and white as either side would deem. And I know I used Marguerite Bennett as the big crux of my ramble, but I don't mean anything negative towards her or her beliefs or writing or anything like that. I still follow her as a writer because she's really, really, really good. Her views are her own views, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as it doesn't spoil what could otherwise be solid storytelling. There are writers in this industry that are trying to soapbox that could easily become another video. I mean, I've been sitting on my video, Jeremy Whiteley and the gay pony scandal, but that's not the point. The whole point is, at the end of the day, it all depends on what matters to you as a person and a consumer about what to be upset about or support. If you feel that Marvel truly is an SJW company vying to push a specific message, then not supporting them as a company makes sense to you. And it makes sense in general. If you feel that the product is what matters, not the politics or the personal details behind it, then support the books that tickle your fancy and makes you want to continue reading to show these companies that quality matters over any politics. It is truly that simple. Opinions and discussions about these topics should be allowed without needing to be combative, because someone is disagreeing with your assertions. Hence why I used Marguerite Bennett's time with Marvel and gave several ways to look at it. Facts are facts, but assumptions and inferences made based upon those facts are just the leaps in personal opinion. So I know a lot of people won't quite get what I'm saying with all of what I've said, but leave your comments below. I reply to most everyone with very rare exceptions. Everyone is allowed to have an opinion. That's what makes the Western world so good right now. So please, if you're going to tell me how wrong I am because I dare say that maybe there's not a giant SJW conspiracy, or to try and skin me alive because I dare suggest that maybe there is, then please, at least phrase your bitching me out well. And yes, I know I need a better mic and better editing software than Movie Maker. I'm sorry. But hey, feel like YouTube comments are too impersonal to flame me? My Twitter and Facebook pages are down below in the description. I'm always up for being flamed elsewhere, and hey, I do reply to most messages even. So yes, discuss below. I'd like to hear others' opinions on this. Oh, and I did read the first Riri scenes from the latest Civil War 2 thing. She's meh right now. I really can't see her holding her own book. Okay, all business done? Good. Stay golden, Inklings.